What if you could start an Airbnb business, but not have to use any money? I'm not even talking about raising money. I'm talking about getting an infinite return on your investment because you got no money in the deal. That is what we're going to be talking about today on the Fearless Investor Podcast. Hey, welcome in, everyone. This is Kyle Stanley here on the Fearless Investor Podcast, and I am talking today about one of my favorite things in the world, which is Airbnb. And of course, like I said in the intro there, we're talking about ways that you can get involved in Airbnb without having any money in any deals, not having to own property, not having hardly any risk associated with it. And I'm going to show you not only what that looks like, but I'm going to give you a few steps on how to get there too. I know a lot of these things that we do on the podcast are talking about, the vision of stuff, and then we never really get to the how to all that often. But today we are going to get to the how to, and that is exactly what you're going to get from me. But before we get too deep into this, I want to make sure you go over to fearlesskyle.com and go and download our Airbnb profit calculator. It's a very important tool, especially for today's episode, because if you don't have this downloaded and you aren't using it, then you're not going to be able to do most of the things that I'm going to tell you how to do today. So without further ado, let's get into this. And let me just preface by, if you haven't heard my story of how I got into Airbnb, I'm really going to be just kind of walking you through exactly how to do this strategy today by just using the same things that I did in my story. So let me start with my story, and then you'll see exactly how I'm implementing these things and how you can do it as well. So reverse the clock back to January 2019. I had been doing Airbnb now for 3 years as just a room out of my house. So a house hacking tool to be able to pay for my mortgage. And then I got into real estate and decided, you know what? Maybe I ought to try an entire house. And so I left my house for a weekend, went on a vacation, and said, what the heck? Let's just see if it gets booked out. And it got booked out all 3 days at triple the price. I made $450 in one weekend while I was gone. And that felt like freedom. And so for me, I said, okay, if I can do that in one weekend, what can I do even more of it? By this time, I was a super host. I had like close to 200 reviews. And so I was just like, I was in go mode. I wanted to educate myself. I wanted to learn more about what I could do with Airbnb in order to maximize my profits. And I was in this mindset, of you got to own the house. You got to own the house. But I started listening to podcasts like this one and found out that you don't have to own the house. You can actually use other people's properties to be able to make a profit on Airbnb, and a really dang good profit at that. So what I did is I took one of those courses. I learned the arbitrage model, which most of you who have been listening to my podcast know about. That's when you sublease on Airbnb. You have basically a sales pitch that you give to a landlord, showing them all the reasons why they should be renting to you and not a regular tenant. And then by convincing them to do that, you now can rent it from them, sublease it on Airbnb, and you keep the difference. You keep the profits. So that was the next step. And meanwhile, I'm also flipping houses. I'm burning properties. I'm buying a couple conventionally. And before I know it, I've got 6 Airbnbs before the end of 2019. So again, May of 2019 was like when I really started to dive into it. So, what is that? About 6-7 months, I'm getting about a property per month. Well, then 2010 hits, or 2020 hits, and I'm motivated to get to the next level. So I get 3 more properties right away. I'm about 9 or 10 properties at this point. And what happens? Everyone knows COVID hits. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, do I need to turn these into regular rentals? What am I going to do moving forward? Like I just, like everyone, went into freak out mode, but I just decided, hold on, wait out the storm. Let's see what happens. And meanwhile, I just kept on telling everyone about my journey and about what was going on and what I was experiencing and how much I was seeing in terms of vacancy and rates reduced and all that kind of stuff. But we weren't seeing a whole lot of drop off. So I just kept telling people about how great this thing was still doing during a pandemic. And before I knew it, on the other side of this, now we're right around May or June of this year, suddenly I'm getting rings and calls. Like my phone is just ringing off the hook, and it's people that say, hey, I've got a house. Would you be interested in managing it for me? And the answer to that was yes. So before I know it, in I would say about 3.5 short months, I went from 10 properties to 22. We've got two more that are coming up here in the next couple of weeks. So we're going to be at 24 here before we know it. And it's all through the managing model. And that is what we're talking about today, the managing model of Airbnb and the benefits of it. So the very first thing, the biggest benefit of it, it's an infinite ROI, because you have absolutely zero financial obligation to this property. It is a landlord who says, hey, even after paying you your managing fee, and even after paying for furnishing, I'm going to make so much more money than if this was a regular rental, that this just makes sense. So in other words, there has to be meat on the bones with this property. Like if I've got something that I'm going to take over and I'm going to own it, or I'm going to arbitrage it myself, and I'm only going to make $1,000 a month, that's probably not the type of property that a landlord is going to come to you with and say, hey, manage this on Airbnb, unless it's already furnished. But if someone says, hey, I've got two houses on one lot, or they're in a really, if you're in an area where a regular rental is getting, let's call it $400 or $500 of monthly income, and if they put it on Airbnb and it's going to make, $2,500 to $3,000, well, now, you take out your management fee, and this person's making, instead of $400 to $500 a month of cash flow for a regular rental, after your management fee, let's say they're making, $1,500 to $1,800. Now you've got a killer deal, and they see it and they're like, hey, I'm going to pay off this furnishing probably within the first year. And then this is completely passive, so I don't have to do anything. And I've got someone like Kyle on my side that's just going to do all of the technical stuff for me. It's a win-win all the way around with the right property. And, I say almost no risk, because, you might be looking at it and saying, well, I've got no money in the deal, and the landlord is really the one that's taking all the risk. And that really is true. But I say almost no risk because, you are risking your reputation on Airbnb, your 5-star ratings that you're trying to get. You are risking the fact that, you're putting time and energy into something that's not going to make you as much as if you were going to arbitrage it or own it yourself. So you have to look at it from a standpoint of resources and also reputation. So if this to you though, like me, guys, I mean, I'm telling you right now, this is 100% the way that I'm building my business right now, is through managing other people's Airbnbs. By the way, side note, if you know anyone in Phoenix, Arizona, or Scottsdale, Arizona, or anywhere in the greater Phoenix area that has properties or knows people that has properties, we're actually expanding our business out there, and I would love to be able to connect with landlords as well to either arbitrage or manage for them as well. So side note there, but that's exactly what you can do as well. So recap here, no money in the deal, using other people's properties. It's a win-win all the way around. Like, that's the biggest thing for me. I read this quote the other day about entrepreneurs, the true capitalists, the people who love finding opportunities, either say we all win or none of us win. And that to me is exactly what this model is I love helping people win. Some of my recent clients that have become landlords that I'm managing properties for, they're giving raving reviews to my upcoming clients before they ever sign with me on deals, because they're just like, we would have only been making, $200, $300 a month with this property. Now we're making over $1,200, $1,300 a month. And we're completely 5X, 6X, 7Xing their income because of the fact that the Airbnb model just works so much better. So hopefully you understand all that. Like, again, if you want to get the most profitable way, not the biggest ROI, okay? Difference here. Profit is just pure profit. $100 versus $1,000. ROI is a percentage. When you have no money in the deal, you have an infinite return on your income, right? On your investment. But if you're just looking for bottom line profit, go own as many as you can, go arbitrage as many as you can, because at the end of the day, you're probably going to make a little bit more doing it that way. But I love this model because I can scale it super quickly because I have no money in the deal. So how do you get there though? That's the big question, right? Okay, let's take my story as an example. I started off by managing my own property, which was my house, and it was a room out of my own house. That allowed me to be able to get to Superhost. It allowed me to be able to build up this 4.8-ish star rating over a few years. It taught me all of the ways that I could make it a better experience for guests. I started learning how to interact with the guests through the app. Of course, with the guests being in the house, I got to learn a little bit more about them and the reasons of why they were coming to Fresno or to Arizona for their trips. And so I learned a lot just by doing this as a room out of my own house. So if I were you and, you're either in a marriage or partnership where there is some flexibility. I say this because I know a lot of people don't want strangers in their house, but some people love that. And they love the fact that they can meet new people and they can start a new business, and it's really easy and it's a little bit fun and exciting. We've had clients in the past that are, in their 60s and do that. And then I also know some friends and family members and other clients that are, single and in their 20s and doing this too. So it's a great way, though, to build up your reputation on Airbnb. Plus, when you go to a landlord and say, hey, look at all the reviews I have on Airbnb, it looks like experience, right? It looks like great experience. Or you could use it with, if you got an investment property and you're just wanting to go ahead and try it out and skip past anyone staying in the house with you, but just doing it completely separate in another property that you have, by all means, go pay the money for the furnishing, go get another property set up. And just the idea here, guys, though, is you just need to get a profile started. Maybe you even have someone that has a property and you have that trust with already and knows your work ethic and says, hey, yeah, you can use my property. I'll go ahead and let you, manage it as an Airbnb. And maybe that's your start. You have to get a start. You have to get that profile set up. And you have to get to Superhost in order to be able to attract people. Now, the next step, so that's number one. Next up is master your numbers. And this is where that profit calculator comes into what I was mentioning earlier on our website at fearlesskyle.com. Make sure you download that. Use AirDNA as another resource. I did a great video on how to navigate through AirDNA. It's on our YouTube channel. And get that stuff figured out. And your best way to do it is going to be through practice, okay? For me, I had, what did I say? I did one arbitrage and 5 that I owned by the end of 2019. So I had 6, and then I got another couple arbitrage at the beginning of 2020. So I had 6, 8, 9, 8 or 9-ish properties at this time, but they were spread out all over the Central Valley. And so I knew that, hey, if I'm getting X amount of dollars a night for this one, that's a 3-2 on the west side, and someone comes to me and says, hey, I got a 3-2 on the west side, I know it's probably going to get similar to that. And so I just started really understanding what properties were worth what per night. And for you, that's, I'll tell you this. It was not a slow approach. That sounds like a slow approach, but it wasn't slow for me because I was getting properties about 1 per month at that time. And that helped me to be able to learn my numbers, master what my expenses were going to be, what the profit was going to be per night there, how my occupancy was looking, excuse me. And from that, I could look at a property and within minutes know what that person could possibly make within a month, as long as I understood what their mortgage was. And so I was able to get this really honed in skill that allowed me to be able to show landlords, here's what you'll make if you do it on your own. And then, oh, by the way, 20% management fee plus a $1,500 startup fee. This is exactly what you'll get with me if you hire me to do it for you. And so I got to be able to share that with landlords with the idea that I was just providing them with some value and some options. Luckily, I've never had to sell any landlords on this idea. They've all come to me through word of mouth. And from there, it's really just been about providing them with value, providing them with knowledge, providing them with options. I undersell, I over deliver every single time. That's the goal, at least. And so for that reason, I built up all these super happy clients and landlords. And what do you think is happening? Now they're referring their friends, or we've got other people that are saying, hey, heard you do Airbnb. We've been running our own Airbnbs. We're not really enjoying the process, but we'd like to keep it on Airbnb. Will you do it for us? We've got a friend of ours that's a cop that is having us do that. You know, he can't really be by his phone all the time to message guests during the day. So these are the kinds of things that become valuable to other people because they see me as the expert. So once again, number one, started with managing my own property. Number two, master my numbers. And then number three, build an incredible team that automates the process and works under a tight deadline. So when someone tells me, when can you get up and running with this? If I tell them, if you tell me yes today, I know in 3 weeks we've got our first guest showing up. And I know that with confidence because my team is awesome, because our process is awesome, because some of the employees of which I have within my business are awesome, and I know they're going to manage the project. And I just know overall how this process is going to work. Plus, I know exactly what is within my team's grasp and what is outside of that grasp. So I will always be able to have this process completely, I guess, just not just automated, but I understand what goes into this because I started out doing it myself, then I automated it, and now we're scaling it. What do I talk about all the time? MAS, M-A-S, master, automate, scale. And that's exactly what we're doing here is I've mastered this process, and then I automated it by bringing on amazing teammates. And now, like, I'm in Arizona this entire month, and we've added on possibly 2 more properties without actually me being there in person. That means that we're scaling without me being present per se in this business. And so I know that if my team is going to get the head start today, they're going to be ready to do that within 3 weeks. And I can confidently share that with that landlord. Or I could tell them, hey, listen, if you think you can do this on your own, you go hire the interior designer, you go find the repairmen, you go find the plumbers, you go find the electricians, you go find the boots on the ground person that's going to go do all the quality checks for you. You go hire all the cleaners. Good luck with the cleaners. That's going to be your most difficult thing in this entire business. Okay. And then if you do that really well, then you are going to, on average in Fresno, get a 75 to 80% occupancy rate, according to AirDNA. Or you can hire me right now and get, on average, a 95.7% occupancy rate. That's what we have in our last 365 days. And you don't have to go find the teammates. You don't have to go do any of that stuff. All you have to do is look at your expense report and profit and loss statement that I'm going to send you at the end of the month, every single month. How much more passive does it get than that? Plus, because I'm getting you that extra occupancy, you're going to basically be earning the exact same amount if you were going to be doing this on your own with a lot less work. And so that, guys, is how you get to managing properties. Now, some of you are probably sitting here being like, well, how do I get the leads for landlords? Like, how do I go get myself introduced to landlords? How do I even get started? I don't even have a property, Kyle, or I live in an apartment and they're not going to let me do Airbnb there. I'm renting a place. They're not going to let me do Airbnb there. Any of these questions, especially like, how do I become a super host, or how do I go find the best price furniture? How do I make sure I'm saying the right things to our guests? There's so many questions, right? So this is where I'm going to come in and just encourage you to go to our website, fearlesskyle.com/Airbnb host. And that is a page that is dedicated to showing you steps on how you can get started in Airbnb right now. And at the bottom of that page, there's 2 options. One, you can set up a consultation with me where we can answer more of your questions, or you can apply for our Airbnb Kickstart Mastermind, which is a educational program that people are getting amazing results in, especially here on the backside of COVID. It has been so much fun seeing these new clients of mine that are getting just immediate results and are having so much fun with this process. I would love to be able to share some of those stories right now, but we're kind of running out of time. But one guy, just for example, joined us and within 1 week had his first arbitrage property under his belt. By week 5, he had his first guest that he was hosting, and he's already cash positive in month 1. Like, that is so much fun for me to be able to see that. So I'm excited for you guys to be able to have these resources, whether or not, and here's the big thing, and this is what I tell everyone, whether or not you are going to use me as a mentor, as a coach, or use our educational program as a way to be able to get a roadmap to what you want to do with this Airbnb business. I don't care if you use me. I care that you have someone there with you, whether that's a partner or a mentor or a course. You need to do this thing the right way. And guys, this is the easiest business to invest money in because you know how much you're going to be able to get a return right away. If you go out and do this business on your own, okay, you might in the first year get a 70 to 75% occupancy at a decent rate. Or you can go get someone that's going to help you do this right now and get a 90 to 95% occupancy at a great rate. And let's say you spend $2,000 or $3,000 or $5,000 on their education or just for their time, you're literally making that back in a couple months. And you're going to be so much more positive cash flow beyond that. That is what investing in a business looks like. And so I guess what I'm saying here is just don't do this alone. Make sure you're using someone in this process to help you. But if you do want that to be me or you want to look at that option, then make sure you go to fearlesskyle.com/Airbnb host. And we would love to be able to connect with you. So thank you so much for joining us here on the Fearless Investor Podcast, where I'm helping you to conquer the world of investing, and would love to be able to hear your Airbnb stories. Let's make sure that you're commenting on this video, or if you're on the podcast, that you are subscribed and you're also leaving a review, especially about Airbnb. Would love to hear that. We'll see you next time, guys.